So recently on the cluster we got up and running this thing called rclone, and we have it as a module that you can load. And so I have Krish here with me who's been working on it a bunch, and so he's going to walk us through how to set up rclone for your personal profile on Cheaha, and then how we do some transferring of data to and from box.com using this rclone tool. And actually the same process can be used to set up transfer to Dropbox and other cloud storage providers. But here at UAB we have box.com, so that's what we're going to use as our example. And so yeah, we're going to get going. So let's see, let me get out of this slide thingy. See, there we go, there's Google Chrome. All right, so first things first, we're doing this on Cheaha, so we need to go to rc.uab.edu. And then even though rclone is a command line tool, Krish, you were saying that we need to be on the desktop to set this up the easiest way possible, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the reason is when you're inside a VNC session, the port forwarding and
it needs to start up because it needs to communicate with Box, right?
It communicates with Box here as well, but it's not able to open up the port on HTTP.
To show you the link from Box where you have to accept that rclone is going to manage your files.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because this is like setting up an app for Box, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's easier done that way, but then you could operate it once the config is in place, you could operate it from here, and we'll look at that when we run through this example.
Okay.
But the best way to set it up would be to launch a VNC session.
Okay. So for that, we're going to go to Interactive Apps, HPC Desktop, and then we're going to click Launch.
Yeah. And for this, you could use the minimum settings. You don't need to keep that on for long. So.
Oh yeah. So I did do an express session. I think I had 16 gigs of RAM. Probably not necessary. But all right. So our desktop is running. So now I can launch it. And we're on the desktop. So now what do I need to open up?
You need to open up the terminal.
All right.
And you need to load rclone.
As a module, right?
As a module,
so
right.
I go module, load.
I would, sorry to cut you off, but I would first look at all the rclone modules available. So maybe module spider rclone.
Module spider rclone. All right. So this will tell us if there's multiple versions of rclone. Would there be a reason to use one version over another, or would it generally just be okay to use the most recent?
So based on what I read, if you set up an rclone based on one particular version and use another version, so when you just type in module load rclone, it would load the latest version.
Oh, okay.
Right now, module rclone would default to rclone 1.48.0.
I gotcha. So if I set up my box under currently the most recent version 1.48, if we update the version of rclone to 1.5, then my rclone might not work if I am trying to use my box configuration I started under 1.48.
Yeah, it could not. So
okay. So I might have to reconfigure it if...
Right. Yeah, depending on what the updates are.
Okay.
So for now, it would be best to load the particular version, the one.
Okay. So yeah, so that's nice to know. So it's best practice to... So even though if I go module load rclone, it will load 1.48 because that's what's installed.
Right.
If we update it to 1.5, then it'll start using 1.5. So if I want it to continue working for a long time, then it's best to go ahead and specify the version.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. All right, so now rclone is loaded, and unlike something like rsync where I can just specify the URL, here I need to do some configuration because there's some authentication that happens, right?
Right. So you need to establish the connection once, and then you could always use it because the connection has been established to copy.
Okay.
So you would do rclone config,
Okay.
and this is really simple to follow. So since you want to set up a new remote, just
Okay, so right now I don't have any remote, so
That's
I don't
right.
have anywhere I can use rclone.
True.
And I want to use a new remote. And a remote just specifies some other website, some cloud file sharing service, right?
Right.
Okay. So then I'm going to type N and then enter. And then,
Could give it any name.
yeah, so we'll just call it remote box. Okay, and then we've got to, it looks like these are a lot of different file transfer services.
Right.
So we could use this with OneDrive. We have OneDrive on campus, so that's useful.
That's true. Yeah.
Google Drive, if that's your thing, and Box, which is what we're gonna show right here. So that's number 6. Could you also specify it by typing whatever's in the quotes there?
Actually, you could.
I'm not gonna do that. I was
On
just
the
curious.
instructions, I think you could. Have to look that up.
All right. So do I need to enter anything for the app client ID?
So as it's mentioned, you could leave blank normally unless you know what you're doing. So the default would be blank. So just
Okay.
maybe leave it blank.
So I'll just leave it blank,
Yeah, same
and then
thing.
same thing for the app client secret.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm going to pretend that I'm not an advanced user,
Okay.
and so I'm going to say no. Oh, I hit shift and not enter. That would be a thing. All right. So let's see. So use auto config. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing, so I'm going to say yes.
And yeah. So this step where it loads the Firefox session by itself does not always happen when you're doing it on
just the terminal.
on just the terminal. Yeah.
I gotcha. So yeah, so it's best to do this inside of a VNC session if you're going to use the auto config. That makes sense. So at UAB we have single sign-on, so I'm going to use that, and I'm going to authorize and log in, and then dual factor authentication. We're all about security. All right, I got my push, so let me approve that. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to grant rclone access to Box. All right, so that worked. Okay.
And you see that a token was sent and the connection is established. So
Okay, so this is the security stuff. So it sent a token, we got a token. Great. So now I'm going to say yes, this is okay. And then there's not anything else I need to do for config, right?
no. So when you can see your current remotes, so the one that you set up was remote box and the type was box. That's out here.
Oh, okay, right here, yeah.
So you know that your connection has been established and what it's
Okay.
called and what
Excellent.
it's associated to.
Excellent. So I'm going to quit that.
Right.
And then now I can, from what I understand, I can use a lot of basic Linux commands like for file browsing stuff, but as long as I put rclone first and whatever the remote that I'm looking for at the end, it'll find it. So if I do rclone ls and then remote box colon, you have to put a colon after your remote. Then if I hit enter, and I have way too much on my box, so that's what we're seeing here. So let's not worry too much about that. So what if I wanted to use this to transfer files from my computer to Box? Like I have this R script that I want to back up.
Okay. So one, where do you want to transfer it to? Do you want to create a new directory?
Yeah, let's create a new directory.
Okay,
So I know that's something coming from rclone.
That's right. So
So we'll do rclone, and then you were telling me I can use standard kind of functions. So we'll say make dir mkdir, And then do I have to type in the remote first?
No, you'd have to type
Or I
in the
type in the name of the
name.
directory first? Fine. So we'll call it Cheaha dash, we'll do underscore rclone files. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to do that.
Let me check.
Let's see. You provided, oh, it's only looking for one argument. So yeah, so I think we're going to do it this way. I'm just going to try it. So we'll do Cheaha
Sorry. It is that way.
files. Okay. So here it's a little bit more like a standard SCP almost. So you have to specify the location, or basically the server name, and then the file location. Okay. So now if I go, let me open up my box separately. And so you can see today, just now, was created a Cheaha files directory. All right. So then if I want to put that R script onto Cheaha, or onto box,
Yeah.
all I would need to do is say rclone
Copy.
and then copy.
The name of the file, that's violin outputs. And
Okay.
yeah, and into that location. So
Okay. And if
since
I
it's
didn't
a-
put a location there, it's going to put it just in my base directory on
that's right.
box. Okay.
Since it's a directory, I guess you'll have to put a slash.
All right. We'll see. All right. So we didn't get any errors. So theoretically, if we go back here like magic, yeah. So it says violin plots was just uploaded. So we'll refresh, and it is there. So yeah. Are there any other things that we want people to know about Box and rclone?
Yeah, there's one.
Okay.
So, like we discussed at the beginning of this podcast, you need to just use a VNC session to set it up once.
Okay.
And now you could go back to your terminal
Okay.
and do a rclone config. Oh, since you're on the login node, I think you'll have to load that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to do module
Load
load
rclone.
rclone, and I want to specify my version.
Okay.
Yeah. And then now if I do an rclone config, it should show that I have that remote. Okay.
Right. So now you could run your copy commands directly from
The
your,
terminal.
Yeah.
But
You
just
don't-
for setting it up, the VNC session is really helpful.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
And
Alright,
the only
cool.
other thing is the limitations from Box. Box doesn't have a storage limitation with respect to number of files,
Mhm.
but they do have a storage limitation with respect to the max size
of
of one file.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So is it 15 gigabytes?
I'm not sure. It's more than 10 because I was able to upload a 10,
Yeah.
10 gig file. I have to try it out with 15 gigs. I'll try it out before our session. And but there's a solution. There's a workaround solution for that. You could split the file and upload the pieces. And then-
Okay.
so that's a workaround solution for now.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Krish. And we're going to be having a user training for this coming up soon. But feel free to ask us any questions via support or come into office hours. Thanks.